I had my very first fight televised against an experienced Thai in the largest stadium in southern Thailand. Before this fight, I actually had not had any inter-club or amateur fight experience. Hello, my name is Aiden, or maybe you know me as Nak Muay Knight on Instagram. This fight actually took place about a year and a half ago. Before the account, before I made any sort of content, but because of all the strange shit that was going on with the gym at the time, I did not want to chat about it. But I know that a lot of people have weird gym experiences in Thailand, and I also know that a lot of people want to know what it's like to have your first fight. So this is my experience of both of those things at the same time. So rewind to a year and a half ago. I had been training Muay Thai in Thailand for about 4 to 5 months at this point, but mainly in the smaller islands in the south of Thailand, where I felt like the level wasn't that high and I was really eager to improve. So I left, and I made what I think is a pretty common mistake when people come to Thailand for the first time, especially if you don't have much fight experience, which is choosing a big famous gym that you've seen on Instagram and thinking this will be perfect for my development. So I'm not gonna actually name the gym or get into too many specifics because I am very scared of Thailand's defamation laws. But to cut a long story very short, I started dating a girl from the gym that some of the trainers fancied, and from that point on, the trainers, 3 in particular, did not like me, and they showed it. Anyway, fast forward to fight day. I'd spent about 2 weeks at this point absolutely shitting myself. I had this vision that replayed in my mind of me getting knocked out in front of everyone back home watching live. And you see some people's first fights and they kind of freeze. I was really hoping this was gonna happen to me. I was just praying. I had that dog in me. That dog was gonna come out and I wasn't just gonna freeze up, but that was on my mind a lot. My older brother had actually flown to Thailand to watch me fight, and in the morning on fight day, we went for the weigh-ins. If you don't know, most of the stadiums in Thailand don't have proper weigh-ins, especially in the south of Thailand. And matchmaking is done off a rough comparison between size and skill. But in this one, they had actual weigh-ins, which is the morning of. I usually walk around about 65 kilos, and this fight was at 57.5. So to get down to that weight, I was absolutely shredded. But my opponent was a bit taller, a bit skinnier, not as much muscle. And I remember thinking at the time, like, oh, he doesn't look too strong. He doesn't look strong enough to handle like hard kicks. Doesn't look strong enough to handle some proper hard punches. Oh my God, I was so wrong. You can never ever judge a Thai fighter by their physique, ever. So that evening we went back to the stadium about an hour before the fights were meant to start, and we encountered several more hurdles. Firstly, they asked me for a slip of paper that I was meant to be given at weigh-ins, but I had zero recollection of being given a slip of paper at weigh-ins. I definitely didn't have it on me at that time. So they wouldn't let me in the stadium. I was calling out my trainers, but no one was picking up. So we're waiting outside for about half an hour, and then my brother eventually convinces them to let me in, but they wouldn't let my brother in. At that time, all of the fighters competing in a fight night, apart from the first 2 fighters competing against one another, would be basically put on a truck and paraded around to advertise the fight night for people. So I was in the back with just my opponent and his team. They were oiling him down, getting warmed up. I forgot to add this bit when I was filming, but I spoke to my brother and it's too funny to leave out. After a little bit of time, my brother was allowed in past the first gate, but they told him if he wanted to corner me, he could not be wearing the shorts that he was wearing. We were living way too far from the stadium for him to go back home, change, and then come back and make it in time for my fight. So while I was sitting inside the stadium, my brother was outside stressing out, trying to find some trousers to buy. So he sprinted across the road to a night market and he bought this old pair of ripped up jeans that looked ridiculous on him for 80 baht, which is like £2. I think he still has them today. Now it's probably around 15 minutes before my fight. My trainers rush in, they wrap my hands, they quickly oil me down, and they send me out to fight. I hadn't really done any stretching or shadow boxing, and I remember walking out and just thinking to myself, this. My gym had told me that this guy had around 15 fights, but even at this point I knew you can never ever trust fight records in Thailand, so I wasn't too concerned about the record. But only when I was actually in the ring and they read out my fight record first, which was Aiden, 0 wins, 0 losses, and then they read out his and it was 50 wins, 20 losses. And I started looking at him and he was like 25 years old. He had a full back piece of Sakyan tattoos. And bro, he was looking a lot stronger than he did at weigh-in. Suddenly he'd like doubled in size in my head. He might as well have had a samurai sword. He was just, the aura was very different from that weigh-ins when he was in the ring. But to be honest, at that time, I was actually more nervous about the Y crew than I was about the actual fight. So the Y crew is the traditional dance that you do before the fight in Muay Thai. It's meant to honor your trainers. It's meant to kind of give you a way to stretch and calm your mind before the fight. But I was so nervous, and for good reason, because when my family and friends tuned in back home, I was doing a very, very hip dominant Y crew. Oh man, it makes me cringe even thinking about it now. But yeah, anyway, the fight started, and I remember telling myself, okay, stay calm, stay bouncy, stay tricky, stay elusive. I'd basically seen way too many people's first fights where they just kind of get overwhelmed and they start swinging wildly and they run out of breath. And I really didn't want to do that. However, the moment I received that first hard leg kick, two things happened. Firstly, I thought everybody who says that you don't feel any pain when you fight is an absolute liar because it hurt. And secondly, every single plan that I had went out the window, and I just wanted to knock him out as fast as possible. And in my head, the logic was, okay, what weapon do I have that does the most damage and requires the least amount of energy to throw? Elbows. I had never actually thrown an elbow at someone before, but they felt really natural. And so from that point on, that was pretty much all I was going for. And the elbows were working, they were landing hard, but he was so tough. I would feel an elbow smack against his head, and I'd look at him expecting him to be wobbled, or hopefully I'd see him drop to the floor, and nothing at all. Only later on, when I learned more about Muay Thai scoring, did I realize that how you react to shots heavily influences how the judges see the fight. So if you're receiving elbows and you're wincing and you're getting thrown off balance by it, compared to if you receive an elbow and you show nothing at all, it's very different for the judges. I also realized when I watched the fight back that I was only going for one type of elbow, and every single time that I was going for it, he would dip his head into it. So instead of hitting his jaw or his face, I was hitting the top of his head. But I was still being a lot more dominant in the fight until the moment that would haunt me for weeks and weeks. In the end of round 3, my mouth guard came out. I'd actually lost my mouth guard 2 weeks before this, so I bought a very cheap one, didn't mold it properly, and the moment I got tired, it just kept falling out. It probably fell out around 4, maybe even 5 times. It's funny now because out of all the scenarios that ran through my mind of how I could lose, you know, being knocked out in front of all my friends and family, running out of breath and just getting beaten up for 5 rounds, the one that never ever crossed my mind was losing because of a mouth guard. I'd never heard or even seen that happen. But this ultimately led to me losing the fight on points. And afterwards, I remember being really disappointed in myself. I was thinking, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. I was swinging wildly, I didn't use this technique, I didn't use that technique. But looking back on it now, I'm very proud of how I fought that night. I left pretty much the next day to go to Khao Sok with my brother, and after the fight, it was like a veil had been lifted. I was no longer like, oh, this gym is my family and this is tough love. I just thought, I need to get out of it, I need to change gyms as soon as possible. But since then, I've been extremely lucky with the gyms that I've been at. I have found proper family dynamics at smaller gyms. That's why I always advise people now, if you're coming to Thailand for the first time, go to a smaller gym. You're gonna get way more attention. Okay, my camera died and I was late for training, so I had to run off. But yeah, I found that in those smaller gyms, you can actually form a lot of closer connections with people. Anyway, that was my first fight. And if you're planning to come to Thailand to fight, you can have the most amazing experience, win or lose, but it's dependent on the gym that you choose. So trust your gut. If you pick up on some red flags in the gym, just leave. Also, from talking to my friends who are still at that gym, it sounds like it's changed a lot for the better. Plus, the actual owner of the gym was always very nice to me. Just a few of the trainers were very weird. If you've made it this far, then thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.